Welcome to the VoiceMe Podcast, information and advice on the world of voiceover presented by 𝗙𝗎𝗺𝗺, the South African search directory for voice artists and related services. I'm Andrew Sutherland, founder of VoiceMe, and in this episode, I want to explore something a bit brainy but very useful: neuromarketing principles and how we can apply them to voiceover marketing right here in South Africa. Now, don't let the neuro part scare you. We're going to keep it quite simple. Neuromarketing is basically using insights from psychology and brain science to make marketing more effective. It's about understanding how people really make decisions, often unconsciously, and then adjusting our marketing to fit. For us as voice artists, that means figuring out how to better influence potential clients' decisions, improve our client acquisition, and even enhance our personal branding by appealing to how the human mind works. Now, that sounds pretty cool, right? As a voiceover artist, you're not just a creative, you're also a marketer for your own business. Whether you're an independent freelancer running a home studio or you're represented by a talent agent, you have to convince clients to choose you for their project. Neuromarketing can give you an edge by tapping into the psychological triggers that make those voice seekers or buyers say yes. So this week, I wanted to dig a bit deeper and get into a bunch of key neuromarketing concepts with simple explanations and real-world examples, and see how each can apply to promoting voiceover services. This is going to be a longer episode than usual, so grab a coffee and let's get into it. Firstly, what is neuromarketing and why should we as VO artists care about it? In plain English, neuromarketing is about understanding the brain science of consumer behavior. It looks at how things like emotions, biases, and mental shortcuts affect the way people respond to marketing. Big companies might use fancy EEG scans and focus groups to see how their brain lights up at their ads and test whether different voices, visuals, or music options trigger more preferable responses. But at its core, neuromarketing also includes simpler psychology principles that anyone can use. For voice artists, this matters because hiring a voiceover is as much an emotional decision as a rational one. Clients, whether they're ad agencies, video producers, or a local business owner needing a radio ad, are humans. And humans have quirks in how we perceive value and make choices. If we know those quirks, we can market our services in a way that aligns with how clients naturally think. It's not about tricking anyone, it's about presenting what you offer in the best light so that it resonates with their brains. Imagine you're trying to win over a client for a big project. You've got the talent and the experience. Neuromarketing principles can help you package that talent in a way that feels irresistible to the client. It can even influence their decisions in your favor. For example, guiding a client to realize, this is the voice artist that I need, rather than, here's another option. It can improve client acquisition by subtly removing barriers or doubts that often make people hesitate to hire. And it can enhance your branding by making your name or persona stick in people's minds. In a competitive industry, and VO is very competitive, these little psychological edges can translate into more gigs as well as happier clients. So in a nutshell, neuromarketing is like having a marketing superpower. It lets you speak to the client's subconscious mind a bit, helping them feel great about choosing you. Now, let's break down some of these neuromarketing concepts and see how each one can be put into practice for your VO business. Alright, time to nerd out a bit. I'm going to go through a list of 7 key neuromarketing principles: the framing effect, the affordability illusion, the rule of 3, the IKEA effect, the power of free, the contrast effect, and the paradox of choice. Don't worry, I'll explain each one and give examples, including how you, as a VO artist, can apply them. Firstly, the framing effect. Have you ever noticed how the way something is presented can totally change how you feel about it? That's the framing effect in action. In simple terms, framing means that the context or wording of an offer influences our decisions, even if the core information is the same. Our brains respond differently to how options are framed. Positive versus negative, gain versus loss, this way versus that way. Marketing and advertising are full of framing tricks. For instance, a car dealership might advertise a deal in two different ways. One ad says, "Get 10,000 Rand cashback on your new car purchase." And another says, "Get 5% off the purchase price." Objectively, those might be the same discount on a mid-range car, but guess what? Customers tend to get much more excited about the 10,000 Rand cash back. Why? Because 10,000 Rand sounds like a big win, while 5% requires doing maths and feels more abstract. Most people go for the option that feels like the better deal, even if the savings are identical in reality. It's all about the framing. One is framed as a gain in Rand, the other as a small percentage. Psychologically, seeing that big number and the word cash triggers a positive reaction in our brains. Another framing angle is positive versus negative framing. For example, saying, "This voiceover will boost your ad's impact," versus, "Without a professional voiceover, you risk losing impact." The first is framed as a gain, the second as avoiding a loss. Believe it or not, each phrasing can affect a client differently. Studies in psychology show people react differently if something is framed as a potential gain or a potential loss, and we're often much more motivated to avoid losses. You'll see this a lot in advertising with phrases like, "Don't miss out on whatever," or "this weekend only," which is a loss frame. You'd be losing an opportunity if you don't buy. So how would we as voice artists apply this to our marketing strategies? You can use framing in how you present your services and pricing to clients. Think about the language on your website, your emails, or your proposals. Are you highlighting the positive outcomes of hiring you? For instance, instead of just saying, "I charge 4,000 Rand for a 5-minute narration," frame it in terms of value or savings. For 4,000 Rand, you'll get a broadcast quality 5-minute narration that could boost your brand image and engage thousands of listeners. Now, you're not only mentioning the price, but also framing it as an investment that brings a gain. Elevated brand image, thousands of engaged listeners. If you offer a discount or a special, frame it in the most appealing way. Let's say you're giving a 10% discount for first-time clients on a project that's normally 8,000 Rand. That's 800 Rand off. Don't be shy to frame it as the positive, 800 Rand off your first project in your marketing, since that sounds like a solid saving in Rands. Alternatively, if you want to tap into the loss frame, you might do the same offer as, "Avoid an 800 Rand studio fee, book now as a first-time client." It's essentially the same thing, not paying 800 Rand, but phrased as avoiding a loss. Depending on the context, one framing or the other might resonate more with clients. And then even how you frame your branding is influenced by this concept. Do you call yourself an experienced voice artist that's worked on 100+ projects, or a trusted voice artist who 100+ clients have chosen? The first frames it as your achievement. The second frames it as the client's choice. That's social proof. Both are true, but the emphasis changes the perception slightly. Framing can be a really powerful tool, and when marketing to local South African clients, consider framing that matters to them. For example, saying you're a local South African voice that helps your audience relate instantly. Frames your South African background as a benefit, which it is if the target audience is in fact local. In short, always think, how am I framing this offer or statement? Is there a more effective way to say the same thing? By reframing your value in terms of what clients care about, benefits, savings, avoiding pain points, you make it easier for them to say, "Yes, that sounds great, you're hired." Next up is a concept called the affordability illusion. This is all about making a price feel affordable without necessarily changing the price. And you do this by changing how you present it. Our brains don't always assess cost in absolute terms. We're influenced by context and comparison. smart marketers create an illusion of affordability by breaking prices down or using relatable comparisons. A classic example is the pennies a day strategy in sales. You've probably heard things like, for less than the cost of a cup of coffee per day, you can enjoy X service in ads. What they're doing is reframing, say, a 300 Rand per month expense as 10 Rand a day, which sounds tiny. It's the same amount, but 10 Rand feels like nothing. Hey, that's just one cheap coffee. Psychologically, a smaller number or a daily figure trick our mind into seeing the cost as more palatable. In fact, research has found that consumers often prefer paying in smaller periodic amounts. For example, 100 Rand a month feels easier to swallow than 1,200 Rand per year for the same thing. We zero in on the number 100 versus 1,200, and 100 is just friendlier to the brain. We see this all the time in South Africa with installment plans. Think of how new smartphones or appliances are sold. The ad shouts, "Own it for $4.99 a month," rather than saying 12,000 Rand total. By creating an installment or monthly view, companies create an affordability illusion. You focus on the $4.99, not so much on the larger full price. Even though you might be signing a 24-month contract, so you are paying the full amount in the end, it feels affordable monthly. As consumers, we knowingly accept this because it helps rationalize the purchase. It's less painful on the mind and the wallet to commit to a small monthly payment than a lump sum. As a VO artist, you can use the affordability illusion in a few clever ways, especially when discussing rates or project fees. One way is to break down your pricing to highlight the value in different time frames. For example, if you quote a client 8,360 Rand for an internet marketing video for a voiceover that will be used on social media for a year, you can frame that cost in terms of the usage period. That essentially comes down to about 22.90 Rand per day for a compelling voice that will represent your brand to your audience all year. Or, for just 696 Rand per month, you get a professional voice that speaks to your audience all year round. Suddenly, 8,360 Rand doesn't sound so bad when framed at these different time frames, especially for a voice pushing your brand and a message that sounds like a bargain. You've given the client a reference point that makes the expense more appealing in the grand scheme. Another angle, if you provide a proposal with multiple elements, say for example, voiceover, script writing, audio editing, and music licenses, break out the voiceover piece and show how small it is relative to the whole production budget. Your total video budget is 50,000 Rand, and the professional voiceover I'm providing for 10,000 Rand is just 20% of that. Yet, it's the part that will give your video a voice and personality. This frames your fee as a small slice of a bigger pie, making it seem quite reasonable. The key with affordability illusion is context. Find a context that makes your price seem like a no-brainer investment. If a client hesitates at a quote, try reframing the cost in a smaller unit or compare it to the value or return they get. Of course, be honest. This isn't about hiding the true cost, but about highlighting the value you bring. You're helping the client justify the spend by showing it in a digestible way. Now, let's talk about the rule of three, a principle that shows up in everything from comedy and storytelling to marketing. Simply put, the human brain loves things in threes. There's something almost magical about the number 3. It's enough to create a pattern, but not so many items that it overwhelms us. Neuromarketing-wise, the rule of 3 leverages our brain's pattern recognition and memory. We process information better when it's grouped into threes. Think of famous slogans or phrases: reduce, reuse, recycle, wine, woman, and song, or even the classic storytelling structure of beginning, middle, and end. Presentations often have 3 bullet points. Food menus might feature 3 signature dishes. Marketers often give 3 options for products, like small, medium, large, or bronze, silver, gold packages. There's a reason for that. With 2 options, it can feel like either or, a bit limited. With 4 or more, it can overwhelm, and we'll chat more about that when we get to paradox of choice later. But 3 feels just right. It creates a pleasant rhythm and completeness. Studies have noted that people retain information better when it's presented in a trio. It's an easily patterned form that sticks in memory. In copywriting, for example, using a punchy trio of benefits or adjectives can be more persuasive than a laundry list of many features. Also, offering 3 choices has a psychological trick built in, the compromise effect or Goldilocks effect. People often gravitate to the middle option when faced with 3, assuming it's the safe, moderate choice. Not too expensive, not too basic. That's why you'll see a software company have a basic, pro, and enterprise plan. And sure enough, most pick pro. The rule of 3 sets the stage for that kind of decision-making shortcut. And you as a voice artist can harness the rule of 3 in several ways, in your messaging, your demos, and your service packages. Let's go over messaging first. When you describe your services or strengths, try to do it in 3s. For example, professional, reliable, versatile as a tagline, or I deliver quality audio, quick turnaround, and a friendly client experience. If you list too many qualities, a client might not remember any, but 3 descriptors are much more likely to stick. Even in an email or bio, grouping things into a trio can make your pitch punchier. Instead of a long paragraph about what you offer, you might say, here are 3 things you can expect when working with me, and then list 3 big positives. That structure inherently feels satisfying and complete to a listener. In your demos, rather than overwhelming a potential client with 10 different voice samples up front, you might consider showcasing 3 key demo clips on your homepage. For example, 1 commercial, 1 narration, 1 character piece, if those are your areas. Of course, you can have more available, but presenting 3 featured ones can guide the client's impression more effectively. They'll get a well-rounded view without feeling lost in choices. And remember, they can always ask if they want something specific. When it comes to service packages, if it fits your business, of course, consider creating 3 packages or rate tiers. For instance, Package A, Basic, Drive VoiceOver only. Package B, Standard, VoiceOver and basic editing. Package C, Premium, VoiceOver plus full production with music. By offering 3 levels, you not only cater to different budgets, but you also leverage that compromise effect. Many clients will self-select into the middle package if it offers the best of both worlds. You can also strategically price them so that the middle option is attractive. A classic trick is to make the top tier quite pricey and the middle one look reasonable by comparison. That's also the contrast effect at work, which we'll talk about later. Another trick is to literally highlight that package and make it stand out on your website. Even when quoting custom projects, you can present options in 3s. Option 1, 1 style of read delivered in 48 hours. Option 2, 2 different styles for them to choose from delivered in 24 hours. Option 3, a deluxe option with multiple styles and 24-hour delivery along with free revisions. By doing this, you've framed the decision for the client. Instead of hire you or not, it becomes, well, which package of Andrews do I want? It's a subtle shift, but powerful. They're choosing among your offerings rather than thinking of choosing between you and someone else. So leverage this rule to keep your marketing focused and memorable. Group things in 3s, offer things in 3s, and you'll likely find clients can understand and remember your pitch more easily. And as the saying goes, good things come in 3s. This 4th principle has a funny name, but once you hear the explanation, it'll make total sense. The IKEA effect refers to the finding that people place higher value on things they helped to create. It's named after IKEA, the Swedish furniture store, because so many of us have bought their furniture, spent an afternoon assembling it with those little Allen keys, and then felt extra proud of that bookcase or table because we built it. Essentially, when we invest our own effort into something, we tend to love it more, sometimes beyond the objective quality or value of the item. The classic story here is about IKEA furniture. Researchers found that customers were willing to pay more for IKEA furniture they assembled themselves compared to identical pre-assembled furniture. They value it more because their sweat equity is in it. Even earlier in the 1950s with Betty Crocker, the cake mix, the company discovered that their instant cake mix, just add water, was too easy. Homemakers actually felt bad that they didn't contribute, so they didn't value the result. The solution? Make them add an egg themselves. Suddenly, sales went up because now people felt like they baked a cake. They helped create it. That's the IKEA effect. Another modern example is the Build-A-Bear workshop. You go in, stuff your own teddy bear, add a heart, dress it up. Customers pay more than they would for a pre-made toy and are happy to do so because they've customized the bear and bonded with the creation process. That mildly creepy frog plushie you assembled is your creation. Therefore, it's special. So special, you'll pay double for it. It's irrational on the surface, but emotionally, it's very real. So how do we use that in marketing a service like VoiceOver, where the client isn't literally building something physical? The key is to involve the client in the process so they feel ownership. When clients feel they've contributed to the creation of the final product, they will value it more, and that can lead to better satisfaction, loyalty, and willingness to pay a fair rate without haggling. As a voice artist, you typically provide a finished product, the recorded voice track. The client isn't physically making it, but you can invoke the IKEA effect by making the collaboration feel like a co-creation. And here are some ways to do that. Offer client input and direction. Instead of a completely hands-off experience for the client, invite them to be part of the creative process. For example, you might say, "I'd love your input on the tone and style. Let's shape this together." Most VO professionals also do live directed sessions via Zoom or in studio where the client can direct the performance in real time. When a client directs you, "Can you make that line sound more upbeat?" and then here's the result, they get that jolt of, "Hey, I influenced that outcome." They've effectively helped build the voiceover. Even a simple back and forth in revisions like sending a first take, getting client feedback, and incorporating it gives the client a sense of authorship. They're not just buying a voiceover, they're collaborating on it. Customize and let them choose elements. If applicable, let the client make small creative choices. For instance, here are 2 music bed options I can mix in behind the VO. Which do you feel suits your brand better? Or, I can deliver the read in either a friendly conversational tone or a more authoritative tone. What fits your vision? By giving them a choice, they have to invest a bit of thought and make a decision. That act is a tiny investment on their part. Once they choose, they're going to be more attached to the result because they had a hand in it. It becomes their chosen style or their preferred music, not just what the VO or sound engineer pulled off the shelf. Use the language of partnership. Phrases like, "We'll work together to get the perfect result," or "I'll build the voiceover with you," can psychologically set the stage for the client to feel included. Even if practically you're doing the heavy lifting, setting that expectation makes them more likely to engage. And when people engage and put in some effort, yep, you guessed it, the IKEA effect. They'll likely appreciate the final product more because they feel it reflects their input. A client who values the final product more is a happy client. They're less likely to quibble over the bill because they've seen the effort and they've put their effort in too. In fact, they might even justify a higher cost to themselves because they're proud of the outcome. It also boosts your relationship with them. Instead of being a one-off vendor, you become a creative partner in their eyes, and that means repeat business and referrals. They might say, "We loved working with Andrew. He really let us be part of the process and we're thrilled with how our ad sounds." That kind of testimonial is gold. So find ways to let clients put an egg in the batter, so to speak. It could be as simple as an interactive kickoff call to discuss script and tone, or even as involved as live directing. It's a win-win. Clients feel empowered and value the work more, and you get buy-in, which can make your job easier because they are co-creating the vision with you. The IKEA effect is all about effort equals affection. Get them invested, mentally or creatively, and they'll love the result, and hopefully love you for delivering it. Okay, now it's time to talk about everyone's favorite price: free. We all know instinctively that people love free stuff, but the power of free in neuromarketing goes beyond just low price. It turns out that free has a special, almost irrational allure that can dramatically change someone's behavior. In fact, people will sometimes choose a free option even when a paid option is objectively a much better deal, just because zero cost exerts a psychological pull. There's something about free that feels exciting and safe. It removes all risk, which our brains love. A famous example comes from behavioral economist Dan Ariely, who ran a fun experiment with chocolates. He offered people a choice between two treats: a high-quality Lindt truffle for a small price and a regular Hershey's Kiss, a much more common chocolate, for an even smaller price. Initially, the Lindt truffle was priced at 15 cents and the Kiss at 1 cent. Unsurprisingly, about 75% of people chose the nicer chocolate for a bit more money. It was an absolute bargain for the higher quality. But when they dropped each price by just 1 cent, the truffle became 14 cents and the Kiss became free. It flipped, and the vast majority of people switched to the free Hershey's Kiss. This despite the relative difference, 14 cents versus free compared to 15 cents versus 1 cent, being the same. The mere fact that one option became completely free flipped the preference in favor of the common chocolate. This experiment illustrates how zero price isn't just another price point. It's a category of its own. Free makes us a bit irrational. We'll sometimes take something we don't even need because it's free. It's like our brain says, hey, there's no downside here. Even the word free in advertising is known to grab attention and increase response rates. The attractiveness of free is hardwired. We view free things as all benefit, no cost, which is a very attractive proposition, even if realistically there might be hidden costs or opportunity costs. So, how can you use the power of free to win over VO clients? The idea isn't to give away your main service for nothing. You have to eat and pay bills after all. Instead, strategically offer something for free as part of your marketing or sales process to sweeten the deal and pull clients in. Here's some practical ways to do that. Offer a free sample or demo read. This is a big one in our industry. When a potential client is on the fence or wants to hear how you'd handle their script, you can offer a free custom demo or sample. For example, they send a short excerpt of their script, and you record 20 to 30 seconds for free to show them what you'd sound like on their project. This does two things. One, it leverages reciprocity. Often when you get something for free, people feel inclined to give something back, like giving you the job. And two, it lowers their risk to almost zero. They get to try before buying. Many voice artists do this for auditions or project pitches. It's essentially offering a free preview. Clients often find it hard to resist listening to a custom sample because, well, it costs them nothing and it might be awesome. And if it is awesome, you've hooked them. The key is that free sample could be what tips them to choose you over someone else. Free gets your foot in the door. How about free revisions or other extras? You might consider building a bit of free into your service package. For instance, comes with one free revision or free background music added. These little freebies can make your offer stand out. The client feels that they're getting bonus value at no extra cost, and it doesn't cost you a ton of time, especially if you plan for it. But it does add that shine of generosity to your service. People love getting something for nothing. For example, telling a client, I'll throw in a free alternative take of that last line in case you need a different emphasis. That can leave them feeling they got a special deal. That happiness can be the difference between a one-time client and a repeat client who remembers you fondly. Then, free consultations or strategy calls. Another idea is offering these free 15-minute consultations or brainstorm sessions about their project. This is especially helpful for new clients. It's essentially your sales call, but framing it as a free consultation gives it that no-strings-attached vibe. The client can then pick your brain about the best approach for their explainer video narration, for example, and by the end of that call, if you've given them useful insights, and you do because you're an expert, they've gotten value for free. That builds trust and goodwill. Who are they likely to hire for the gig? You, the helpful expert who already gave them something useful at no cost. The psychological impact of these free offerings is to reduce friction in the client's decision process. It's much easier to say, sure, I'll take a listen to a free sample, or sure, let's have a free chat, than it is to commit money right away. But once they've taken that step, they're more invested in you. It's the start of the relationship. There's also a bit of the contrast effect at play, which we'll talk about next. Your generous freebie makes the subsequent price for the full service seem more reasonable in contrast because they've already gotten something. One thing though, use the power of free ethically and wisely. Don't give away the farm, as they say. The free element should be something that genuinely adds value but naturally leads to your paid service. The goal is not to work for nothing. It's to win clients and ultimately make more money by leveraging that psychological bias for free. So think about what you can offer for free that will entice clients and show your value. It might be small, but if it triggers that excitement or removes a barrier, it can have an outsized effect on growing your client list. Free is super powerful, and a little taste can leave them wanting more and willing to pay for it. Okay, I mentioned this earlier, so let's discuss the contrast effect, a principle that in many ways underpins a lot of the tactics we've already talked about. The contrast effect is all about comparisons. It means that when we evaluate something, a price, a product, or a service, our perception of it can be strongly influenced by what we compare it to. Something that might seem expensive in isolation can suddenly seem like a bargain if shown next to an even pricier option, and vice versa. Our brains are wired to judge in relative terms, not just absolutes. We look at differences, and those differences can be exaggerated depending on how things are presented side by side. One classic use of the contrast effect is in retail pricing. A store might display a premium product at a very high price that they don't actually expect to sell a lot of. Its real job is to make the other products look better by comparison. For instance, a wine list at a restaurant often has a couple of super expensive bottles. Few people buy those, but having a 1,500 Rand bottle on the menu makes the 500 Rand bottle look relatively reasonable, whereas if 500 Rand were the highest, it might seem pricey on its own. That high anchor sets a contrast. Another example, you go to a store to buy a fridge, and the salesperson first shows you a model that's top of the line with all the bells and whistles and an eye-watering price tag. Then they show you a slightly smaller one with 80% of the features at half the price. Suddenly, that second fridge looks like a steal in comparison because your frame of reference was set by the first one. The actual value of the fridge didn't change, but your perception did due to the contrast. Salespeople and marketers often implement this via price anchoring, listing a regular price next to the sale price. Contrast between the two makes the sale look great. Or by showing an expensive package first, then a cheaper one. This taps into contrast effect directly. We even experience contrast in non-monetary terms. If you listen to a mediocre voiceover and then a fantastic one, the second one sounds even more amazing than it would on its own because it's contrasted with the mediocre attempt. Comparisons shape our judgment. The contrast effect can be your ally in how you present your pricing and even how you demonstrate your quality. Here's how you might put it to work. Tiered pricing to create anchors. If you have multiple packages or service levels, remember the rule of 3 packages, you can set one option as an anchor. For example, you might have a platinum package at a high rate, let's say 15,000 Rand, that includes unlimited revisions, super fast delivery, and maybe some extras like professional in-studio recording and mixing in a music track. Then your standard package for 7,500 Rand for the core service, the voiceover recording and basic editing. Placing them side by side, the standard package now looks really affordable. Look, half the price. Even if no one ever buys the platinum, it serves a purpose. This is exactly like the store putting a high-priced item on the shelf to make the others seem like good deals. The presence of that high anchor can push more clients to the mid option. Conversely, you could also have a low-budget anchor. List a small package, cheaper but really bare bones, so that most clients will shy away from the too basic cheap one and opt for the middle. Either way, you're using contrast. Another tactic is to show before and after or A/B comparisons. This is more about quality contrast. If you have the opportunity, like in a blog post or a video or even in your portfolio, you could demonstrate a comparison. For example, a clip with poor quality audio or an uninspired read versus a clip of your high quality audio and an engaging read. When clients hear the difference side by side, the value of professional VO sticks out. Sometimes business clients think, maybe we can just have Bob from accounting do the voiceover to save money. If you can contrast how that might sound versus a professional job, it can be eye-opening. It's a bit tricky to do without seeming disparaging, but even having a section on your site like "Hear the Difference" could leverage a contrast effect. The idea here is the difference highlights your advantages and training. Your polished product appears even more superior when a client is aware of what a lesser alternative actually sounds like. Another thing you could do is highlight your unique selling points against others. In your proposals or conversations, use comparisons to your advantage. Unlike most voice artists, I include X. Or, where some voice artists might just send raw audio, I take the extra step to clean it and edit the audio, so you don't have to spend extra time or money on post-production. By comparing, you make your selling points pop. It's contrast. With others, you'd have to do more work. With me, it's all taken care of. With others, you might worry about consistency. With me, you get a consistent brand voice. But also, be sure you know what the client is comparing you to. If you're aware of a competitor quote or an alternative they're considering, you can frame your attributes in contrast to that. The contrast effect basically boils down to don't let your offering exist in a vacuum when presenting to clients. Provide a reference point. If you're just asked for a price out of the blue, consider giving a high-end reference. Projects like this can run upwards of X Rand with some studios, but I can do it for Y Rand. Of course, be cautious. Make sure any contrast you set still reflects well on you. If your anchor package is high-priced, it should also sound high value, so it doesn't look absurd. If you show a poor VO example for contrast, be clear that it's not your work, or maybe it's an exaggerated bad version you recorded yourself for illustration. The goal is to highlight the attractiveness of your main offering by putting something less attractive next to it. Last but certainly not least, the paradox of choice. This concept might sound counterintuitive in a world where we often think more choice is better, but the paradox of choice says that having too many options can actually lead to decision paralysis and decreased satisfaction. In other words, when you bombard people with an overload of choices, they can freeze up and end up choosing nothing, or if they do choose, they feel less happy about it. This is a crucial one for anyone in marketing because it reminds us that sometimes less is more. The most famous demonstration of this is the jam study by psychologists 𝗙𝗍𝗄𝗃 and Mark Lepper. In a supermarket, they set up a sampling table of gourmet jams. On one day, the table displayed 24 different flavors of jam. On another day, only 6 flavors. They found that while the big display of 24 attracted more initial interest, people love to look at variety, it resulted in far few purchases. Only about 3% of customers who stopped by ended up buying something. On the day with just 6 jams on display, 10 times more customers who tasted ended up buying a jar. So, fewer choices led to more action, and those buyers were more satisfied with their selection. This seems paradoxical, right? Give people 24 options of delicious jam, they should find something they like. But the overload made it harder to decide at all. With 6, it was manageable to compare and pick one. This paradox of choice shows up in many areas. If you've ever tried to pick something to watch on an endless streaming service and spent an hour scrolling, that's paralysis from too many options. Or, closer to our line of work, if a client is faced with dozens of demos from a casting agent, they might feel overwhelmed and just delay their decision. People often prefer when a curated set of options is presented because it's easier on their brains. Too much choice equals stress, and an overloaded mind often defaults to the simplest choice: doing nothing. As a VO artist marketing your services, you want to make it easy for clients to choose you. Part of that is not overwhelming them with too much information or too many choices in your own offerings. So here's how to apply the paradox of choice principle. Streamline your offerings. If you offer a wide range of services, say commercials, audiobooks, dubbing, IVR, animation, etc., that's great, but you don't have to present every possible sub-option to the client at once. On your website or your profile, it might be better to showcase a focused selection of what you do best, rather than an exhaustive list of 25 things. Tailor your pitch to the client's needs. If a potential client is looking for an e-learning narrator, they don't need to also consider that you can do cartoon voices, corporate voicemail, or character singing all in that moment. Too many services listed could dilute what they're actually looking for and cause them to pause. Instead, maybe have broader categories or just a few packages. Remember the rule of 3. You can mention you're versatile, but perhaps phrase it as, my specialities include X, Y, and Z, rather than, I do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, as well as 1, 2, 3, and on and on. A clear, focused offering helps the client quickly identify, yes, that's what I need. Following on from that, curate examples for clients. If a client reaches out and says, we're looking for a voice for a high-energy radio spot, and you have 10 different high-energy samples in your archive, resist the urge to send all 10 for them to choose from. Maybe send your top 2 or 3 examples that fit their brief. By curating for them, you've reduced their cognitive load. They don't have to sift through a huge list thinking, which of these demonstrates what I need? You've already done that work. This not only makes their life easier, which they will appreciate, but also quietly positions you as an expert who knows what works. You're guiding the choice. The paradox of choice tells us that a client is more likely to move forward when presented with a few strong options rather than an abundance of mediocre ones. Then guide the decision. Sometimes simply acknowledging the overload can help. If you do need to present multiple options, say you're part of an online roster and the client is browsing dozens of talents, find ways to guide them. This could be via your personal branding. The go-to voice for explainer videos implies if they need that, you're the clear choice. Or in communication on email with them. Based on what you described, I think my conversational tone demo and upbeat commercial demo are most relevant. Have a listen to those first. By steering them toward a decision, you're counteracting the paradox of too much choice. Limit your pricing options. Earlier we talked about offering 3 packages, which is a good practice. What you don't want to do is offer, say, 5 or 10 different pricing add-ons and variations for a client to figure out. If your rate card is overly complex, a client might get analysis paralysis trying to add it all up. Simplify your rate presentation. For example, bundle things where possible instead of making gigantic lists. If a client truly needs a custom breakdown, you can do it with them, thus involving them IKEA style. But your initial marketing material should feel straightforward. If someone visits your site and sees a list of dozens of options and prices, studio fee, editing fee, revision fee, usage fee, weekday versus weekend fee, etc., they might just throw their hands up and leave. Instead, perhaps say something like, typical projects range in price from X to Y, depending on length and usage. Contact me for a quick custom quote. I keep it simple. That way, you haven't given them an overload up front. The paradox of choice basically teaches us to be a guide for the client. Don't make them do more work than necessary to decide. Every extra choice or piece of information is a tiny friction point in the process. Remove friction by narrowing things down for them. It might feel like you're limiting yourself, but you're really just presenting yourself in a focused way that makes it easier for clients to say, yes, let's do this. I mean, imagine walking into a restaurant with a 20-page menu versus one with a 1-page chef selection. Many of us actually sigh in relief at the one-pager. It's clear, it's the best stuff, and we can pick something confidently. You want hiring you to feel like that 1-page menu. Clear and confidence-inspiring, not the 20-page essay of overwhelm. Give clients the right amount of choice, not every choice. We've covered a lot of things so far, so at this point you might be thinking, great, I understand these concepts, but how do I actually implement this stuff in my day-to-day VO business? So let's wrap up with some practical, actionable steps to put these neuromarketing principles to work for you. This is how you can boost your VO business starting now. 1. Review and refine your messaging. Framing. Take a look at your website bio, your VoiceMe profile, your marketing emails. Are you framing your services in the most attractive way? Rewrite 1 or 2 key lines to emphasize client benefits, the gain frame, or to present your offering as the solution to avoid a loss. For example, if your current line is, I provide voiceover services for commercials and corporate videos, you might reframe it to, I help brands capture audiences and boost engagement through high-quality voiceovers. See the difference? One is just a statement, the other is framed as a client gain. Also, consider if you can highlight any special deals or features in a more compelling way. For example, for this month only, get 30 minutes of studio time free with all voiceovers. That's framing a bonus that might have already been there, but now it's a feature. Always ask, how does this wording make the client feel? Adjust until the answer is, it makes them feel positive and excited. 2. Simplify your pricing and use tiered options. Rule of 3, contrast, paradox of choice. If you currently just quote per project on an ad hoc basis, consider creating a simple rate card with 3 tiers or examples to anchor client expectations. They might mentally place their project into one of these tiers, and because you include a higher-priced premium package, if their need is smaller, your standard pricing or quote will seem very reasonable by contrast. Also, by not listing 10 different line item rates, you keep it simple. They see a few ballparks and don't get overwhelmed. If you already have a detailed rate sheet, you can still simplify what you show to clients initially. The key is to present choices in a controlled way, not too many, and with helpful anchors. 3. Introduce a freebie in your interactions. The power of free. Identify one free offering you can start advertising or using as a lead magnet. This could be free 30-second demo of your script as a call to action on your site. Try before you buy. Or in your pitches, explicitly mention, I'm happy to do a short sample read at no charge so you can be confident in the voice direction. Alternatively, it might be a free consultation call. Book a 15-minute free chat to discuss your project needs. Offer these wherever it makes sense. It's your foot in the door technique. And when someone takes you up on it, deliver loads of value in that free taste. This not only shows your skill, but it's almost like a no-risk trial that can convert a skeptic into a customer. Number 4, engage clients in the process, the IKEA effect. Make a habit of using collaborative language. The moment a project is confirmed, let the client know you want their thoughts and input. You could send a short questionnaire asking about tone, or simply email, "Feel free to share any inspiration or ideas. I want to make sure we build the voice you envision." If possible, offer a live direction session or at least a midpoint review. I can record the first minute and send it to you to make sure we're on the right track. Yes, it's a bit of extra work up front, but it can save from redoing takes and revisions later, and it makes the client feel involved. They won't forget that experience. Over time, you might even create a signature process around this. For example, all my clients get to be part of the creative journey. Join me virtually in the studio, which becomes a selling point on its own. Engaged clients are usually happy clients, and happy clients come back for more. Number 5, curate and guide, the paradox of choice. If you're on a platform or sending an audition or sample, apply the less is more philosophy. Don't submit 5 takes when they asked for 1. Don't upload 20 demos in every genre to your profile. Select the 2 or 3 that best represent your brand and the work you want to get. When replying to inquiries, if a client seems unsure what they want, don't overload them with every possibility. Instead, ask a few qualifying questions to narrow down their needs. Then make a strong recommendation. Based on what you've told me, I would recommend we go with X approach. I'll provide you with Y and Z as a part of that. Many clients will appreciate you making the decision easier for them. You become not just a VO talent, but a problem solver. And that's a huge competitive advantage in a world where clients might be juggling a lot of tasks. Number 6, test and tweak. These strategies are powerful, but every client is a bit different. Don't be afraid to experiment. Maybe try framing one aspect of your offer differently this month and see if clients respond better. Or test offering a free sample to half the potential clients you talk to and see if your conversion rate goes up. Because you might be marketing to a lot of South African clients, pay attention to what resonates culturally too. Perhaps you find that SA clients respond really well to the affordability comparisons, or maybe the power of free gets you lots of small leads that you need to then convert. Treat it as an ongoing learning process. Neuromarketing and marketing in general is all about testing what triggers work, observing the behavior, and then doubling down on what works. Number 7, maintain authenticity and your ethics. A quick but really important note. Using these tactics should never cross into manipulation that makes anyone feel uncomfortable or violates trust. Always deliver on what you promise, especially when you use framing or free offers. The goal is to communicate your real value in the most compelling way, not to deceive. For example, don't frame something as free if you're just hiding the cost somewhere else. Clients are smart, and that can backfire on your reputation. Fortunately, everything I've discussed today can be done completely transparently and genuinely. In fact, a lot of it is about making the client experience better. Less confusion, more engagement, more value. So implement these strategies with that positive spirit in mind. You're here to help clients and also help yourself succeed. By doing this, you'll start to see how the neuromarketing principles translate into real changes in client behavior. Maybe more clients will start saying yes to your proposals. Maybe you'll get comments like, "I really enjoyed the process," or "Your pricing layout was very clear for us." Those are signs it's working. Keep an eye on those results. Did your inquiry to booking ratio improve after adding a free sample offer? Are clients deciding faster when you present only 3 options instead of 6? Use that feedback to keep fine-tuning. At the end of the day, good marketing, neuro or otherwise, is about understanding people. And as voice actors, understanding people is something we're quite good at. We do it to deliver authentic performances. Think of it as just understanding your client's perspective on a deeper level. You're almost directing the client's experience the same way they direct a performance. setting the tone, emphasizing the right points, editing out the fluff, and delivering the message in a way that moves them. And that brings us to the end of this episode, and hopefully you've picked up some handy tips to apply to your VO career. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you noticed any of these principles at work in your own marketing or even as a consumer? Maybe you've got an example of a time you offered a freebie and landed a gig, or a time you limited options and the client said, "Thank you, that makes it easier." Share your experiences or questions, and feel free to reach out to me and my support team at support@voiceme.co.za. Leave a comment here or give me a call on 0861 VoiceMe, that's 0861 864 2363 if you're in South Africa, and to sign up for a VoiceMe profile, register from the homepage at voiceme.co.za. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps others discover the show. And of course, feel free to share it with a fellow VO artist or anyone who might find these insights useful. We're all about building a strong, informed community of voice professionals here in SA and beyond. Like, follow, and engage with VoiceMe and each other on @VoiceMe SA on all social networks. I'm Andrew Sutherland, and that's it from me here at VoiceMe for this week. Cheers for now.